This one is going to show that they're effectively immune to electrocution, and that he's also able to store a charge like a battery. Watch him stick his tongue out repeatedly in the interview portion. Just by that, you know that he's a Drac.
All of Serbia is fascinated by his unique one-man electricity show. 220, 380, or even 20,000 volts don't affect him.
I discovered this quite by accident. A friend and I were helping a locksmith make fences, and we were using a welding machine that gave off electric shocks when it got wet. Well, one day when it was raining, my friend touched the fence with the machine, and he was immediately slammed to the ground by an electric shock. But when I touched it, nothing happened.
By holding two forks connected to a 220-volt current with his bare hands, Bieber can fry a hot dog in seconds.
Electricity does me no harm whatsoever. I never sweat, so I think my dry skin must act as an insulation.
Not only can he hold an electric current in his hands, but he can also put it in his mouth. This is a family characteristic, for his father and brother can also resist shocks.
One day I took my TV in to be repaired. They wanted to disconnect it from the power before they started because the TV transformer contains 600 volts, which is fatal. Well, of course, I wanted to try it out. They tried to hold me back, but I plugged in the TV and grabbed hold of the transformer. And as you can see, nothing happened.
Bieber's speciality has made him famous. He's even in the 1983 Guinness Book of Records. He claims he could even survive the electric chair if he were paid enough to try. Although he earns a little from his performances at various events, he has not yet made his fortune. Once he is charged, the voltmeter indicates his voltage level. In this state, he only has to touch a neon tube for it to light up. Just how dangerous it is to be near him is clearly shown by this steel bar dipped in alcohol.
He's reverting part of his left forearm here, and you can also see that he's reverting his mouth, which is expanded on the right side. So now we know that he's immune to electrocution, at least from conventional sources. And I'm sure that all Dracs can achieve this. The next question is, how does he store electrical charge in his body? He must be simulating metal-like properties in his cells, effectively creating capacitance between the layers of tissue, perhaps by concentrating the iron. That, or he may have nanotechnology inside his body, which is holding the charge. He also mentioned that he doesn't sweat, and I talked about that earlier. All humans sweat. That's the primary way that we remove excess heat from our bodies, and it's also a way to expel toxins. Without that, it's very unlikely that a human would survive past infancy. The reason he doesn't sweat is because he's a reptilian creature. Now you've seen some of the extent of their abilities, but I know that it's not the full extent. Some of these abilities may partially or entirely come from the use of technology, but whatever the source, they are extremely powerful, far greater than anything a human is capable of. And they're doing this in their human imitation forms. In their native forms, they'll certainly be even stronger and faster because of the increased size. This is where the legends of vampires come from. They have superhuman strength, speed, and agility. They're capable of shapeshifting, and they're incredibly difficult to kill. Of course, they also feed on humans, at least drink their blood, and that's true to reality as well, which you'll see later. The alien in John Carpenter's The Thing is based on them, as is the T-1000 in Terminator 2. Both shapeshifters that can imitate other life forms and are almost completely resistant to physical attacks, except for explosives and high heat. As you've seen, they can resist heat up to a point, but I'm certain that if it gets hot enough, it will kill their cells. So the ideal munition to use against them is something that has explosive force and high heat, which would be a high explosive incendiary round. As with vampires, decapitation will kill them if they can't regenerate in time. But as I said, your chances of accomplishing that when they see it coming are just about zero. I suppose that's why in common vampire lore, they only try to kill them when they're asleep. This past year, I had a conversation with a Drac, a male imitation, who told me that they're immortal. I know that they live much longer than humans, and that when their current human identity or persona dies, they can receive a new imitation code and become someone else, perhaps even starting over as a child. But are they truly immortal? I don't know. It seems unlikely to me, but anything is possible. Baphomet is depicted as a humanoid creature with a goat's head and legs. He has scales on his abdomen and snakes intertwined around a rod coming up from his groin, which is obviously a phallic symbol. The scales and snakes mean that he's a reptilian creature, so the goat's head with horns is actually a dragon's head with horns. You've seen that they have 2 toes in their native forms, which would have talons on the ends, so that's represented by the cloven hooves, and the elevated ankle is similar to the hind leg of a hoofed animal. That explains the goat's legs. The rod represents a penis, and he also has breasts, so that tells you that he's a hermaphrodite. Baphomet's wings represent an ability to fly, but I doubt that they have wings in their native forms. For a creature of that weight to attain flight, it would take a huge wingspan, with each wing being much longer than the body, so it's very unlikely. But as we know, they can levitate using either their polymorphic ability or technology. They can fly without wings. The torch on the top of his head is obviously symbolic. It represents illumination, the possession of knowledge which allows one to see, while the rest are kept in the dark. So the Illuminati are dragons, and humans are their mindless thralls. He's pointing at the moon because that's their home base. That's how they arrived here in the first place. It's a mobile space fortress, a Battlestar Lucifer, the eye in the sky, and Lucy in the sky with diamonds. This symbol makes it clear that Baphomet is a dragon. The medical caduceus is a clear match to Baphomet. It has the rod with the 2 snakes intertwined around it and wings. That's another representation of the Dracs, to say, we control the medical system. The vast majority of doctors are Dracs, and I'm very familiar with this in my personal life. The symbol of Islam is a crescent moon with a pentagram. That represents the same crescent moon and pentagram with Baphomet. Anytime you see a 5-pointed star, it's meant to be a pentagram. They could make stars with any number of points, with 3 or more, but it's almost always 5. As you can see, there are many countries that have pentagrams in their flags, though a few of them in there have non-pentagram stars. Almost all of the stars that you see used in other formats are pentagrams, like the star on top of the Christmas tree, or Hollywood stars. I don't know what the relevance of this symbol is to them, what it represents exactly, but they do make it very prominent. These two pictures tell the whole story. A dragon in a pentagram with the moon above. That's the same as Baphomet, except that here it's openly shown as a dragon. The other one shows the dragon's face reflected in the blade, which is aligned with her human face. That's saying that she's actually a dragon, disguised as human. So this artist is telling you that Baphomet, Satan, is a god of dragons, and that his children are shapeshifters that are imitating human bodies. This cover art from the band Pack says the same thing. Satan and his children are dragons. It also shows that they've enslaved humanity. Both of these are depicting shapeshifters in different ways. The one on the left is a relief from the ancient Mayan civilization. It's a man coming out of a serpent's mouth. The man is not being eaten. He's emerging from the reptilian form. He's changing from the reptilian form into something that looks like a human. The one on the right comes from an Italian Renaissance painting, and he's depicting a shapeshifter by simply putting a man's head on a dragon's body. The dragon kings of China are depicted in the opposite way, by putting a dragon's head on a man's body. And they can do this in reality, shift specific parts of their bodies completely to one form, while keeping the rest of their bodies completely in the other form. So for example, they could have a human head on a drag's torso, with the arms in tree imitation form, and the legs in werewolf imitation form. They could create some very bizarre looking mythological creatures this way, and I'm sure they've done that in the past. In Dungeons and Dragons, all dragons are capable of shapeshifting, and they frequently use this to imitate other races. In recent times, the dragons of Toril were nearly all recluses, or at the very least deceptive to their true nature, living amongst other species in polymorph form. And there the truth is spelled out in Dungeons and Dragons. Of course, the reality is they're doing far more than just living amongst other species. They're completely dominating humanity on this planet. They have humans under total mind control, and they create everything about their existence. In recent times, they've made dragons popular in the mainstream media, with Tolkien's book The Hobbit leading the way. There have also been a number of characters in movies, TV shows, and video games that are capable of shapeshifting. This one is Flemeth in the Dragon Age series, who can transform into a dragon. She's supposedly a human who gained this ability from evil spirits, but in reality, she'd be a dragon that's polymorphed into human imitation form. There's also the game Drakensang, in which shape-shifting reptilians have infiltrated and taken over human civilization, disguised as humans, of course. The entire game is based on uncovering that conspiracy. The other cover is from Divinity 2, and in that game, the player character is able to transform into a dragon. This is the character Saskia from The Witcher, Assassin of Kings. Unlike Flemeth, Saskia is naturally a dragon, and her human form is an imitation. She's in her human imitation form when you first encounter her in the story, so you think she's human for most of the game, until she reverts to her native form to defend a city. There's a large hole at the base of Sasia's horn, right behind the eye socket. That's similar to what we see on Parker's devil. Presumably that's the ear cavity, which would mean that they have excellent hearing, despite the lack of external ears. The horn would also help to amplify sounds, as it intensifies and transmits the vibrations into the ear, almost like a megaphone. A large ear hole like this would also pick up lower frequencies than a human ear. The newborn also has several holes in the side of its head. Given that all three have them, it's very likely that this is a feature of the native form. So it seems that all of their native senses are superior to humans, except perhaps for touch.